Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Ranks FC podcast.
Hello Rank Squad and welcome to Ranks FC. It's your favourite transatlantic football podcast. It's not transatlantic this week. My name's Jack Collins and I'll be your host today. And joining me is the one, is the only, is the rank god, Mr. Sam Ty. How you doing, mate?
Hello. Yeah, not transatlantic at all. We are sat next to each other.
Yeah.
It's about the most opposite you could get from you and Dean possible.
It's great. It's great. We're back in the studio. We're where we normally record the truth. The truth's set for Friday already. We're flying this week. So
double shift for me.
Yeah, double shift for you. You get double ranks this week. So
Double pays?
Double pay, mate.
Is it double pay?
Yeah, double zeros. Double zip. But yes, 100% double pay for you. We're going to talk about underrated players. I'm excited about this because there's so many different definitions of how you can go about underrated. We're going to look at some who people write off perhaps, or people haven't kind of got to their favourite bits of yet, and have a look at why they're actually excellent footballers. So that feels like a good start.
Yeah, underrated has forever been a very difficult concept because it really does depend on, like, first of all, your opinion of a player, and then all the opinions on that player of people that you know. But you don't know what every person in the world thinks of this player, so you could be completely wrong by saying they're underrated. So what I decided to do was pick the most difficult topic possible for my big return, and just wind us up and make it as difficult as possible. But we'll get there.
We will get there. I'm going to start with things we love, which is fun because we haven't done that for a couple of weeks. And I know that you have a certain Manchester United midfielder who's recropped up on the radar in recent weeks.
Yeah, I'm not trying to rub your nose in it, because you've obviously been of the opinion that Kobbie Mainoo was one of the worst players ever to have lived.
This is just so unfair, right? I am given so much stick for this. I just thought that Kobbie Mainoo was a bit overrated when he broke through, but he has been absolutely excellent.
Did he drift into underrated? Should he be in the next part of the podcast? Maybe. I don't know. Look, what I love is Kobbie Mainoo's immediate redemption and huge part that he is playing in this Manchester United side, and unfortunately it reflects incredibly badly on Ruben Amorim.
This is the bit, right, like of all of it. So I think that there are certain elements, and I think that, to be honest, if you want to batter that door down, if you are playing with two in midfield, I don't think this works to the same extent. But I think it's a real damning indictment on the fact that he refused to play a third midfielder, especially because could have just played with, one number 10. Like, it didn't need a complete change of system. You could have shifted it around a little bit.
He also was changing the system a little bit towards the end. He was playing with different shapes. He did use a back four at some point, which naturally starts to bring someone else into midfield. Still didn't want to play him. Still didn't want to play him. A bit like, well done to Kobbie Mainoo. He correctly identified, I can outlast you. He didn't go out on loan. He didn't accept a duff move. He thought, I'm going to be here longer than you, mate. I'm going to wait. And he didn't have to wait too much later than the January transfer window, basically, where then steps back into the team and has now played really well 4 times in a row. Really well.
And
so
doing different things as well,
yeah,
I think it's really important.
The Manchester derby, straight in, really good performance. Obviously gets an assist against Arsenal in the 3-2 win, plays against Fulham, and then plays well against Tottenham, and nearly breaks João Palhinha's ankles at the weekend. He was really, really good. Now, I'm not going to get carried away over Kobbie Mainoo all over again and start talking about all these amazing, wonderful things he can do. However, he has shown us or reminded us exactly why he's a very good footballer. Ball retention, under pressure, tight spaces, keep it ticking, keep it moving. He's been great. And it's just really nice to see him play, and really nice to see him play well immediately. He doesn't look rusty. He doesn't look like he needs a couple of games to find his rhythm. He just steps straight back in there. Fantastic. Like Hayden Hackney reborn.
Oh, honestly, the jury started on how much I love Hayden Hackney. Let's not go down that route.
But great for him. Just great for him. Like, we've all been waiting for this. Like, I don't think it's particularly fair the way he was sort of pigeonholed as a you or Bruno situation, a battle that he's always going to lose. There could have been ways to get him into the team. It didn't help him that there was no European football for Manchester United this season. That was a big problem for him. But hey, there's still no European football when he's now a regular starter. So well done, Kobbie.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I think what's interesting is where this potentially leads, right? Because I was answering this question on the post box, which goes out on our Patreon. You should subscribe. There's a link in the description. We'd love to have you over there. One of our patrons, Jamie, was talking about another top performance from him, and he basically was like, can he play his way into the England squad in the summer, or have Rice, Anderson, Wharton, and Henderson locked up those deeper midfield spots? But
come on,
my answer was
open, surely.
My answer was very much so. And look, again, you don't have to be the world's biggest Kobbie Mainoo fan to look at that and be like, there are spaces available within that midfield if you can play this well for the rest of the season. And based on the last 4 games, you would look at that and say, well, if he carries that on till March, I would be very, very surprised if Tuchel leaves him out of those March internationals.
Agreed, yeah. If you consider that the names that you've just read out there, I mean, obviously Anderson is A1 at the moment in terms of he's locked into that starting spot. He's been phenomenal since Tuchel came in, and
he's also in a relegation battle.
He is, but he's got the credit in the bank. In England.
That doesn't mean he should be dropped. No, that's not what I'm getting at.
He's got the credit in the bank. And the last 2 names there were Jordan Henderson. I mean, he's a lock for absolutely nothing right now. You know, he shouldn't be. He might end up going into squad as the 4th man, you know, for veteran leadership reasons and all that jazz, however you want to dress it up. But even someone like Adam Wharton is not exactly locked into the England squad, is he? Now, on talent, he should be, but he has barely played for England, often got injured at the wrong time, and certain managers haven't been willing to trust him. So I consider this a completely open playing field for Kobbie Mainoo, and it always helps when you play for Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jordan Henderson is currently leading this Brentford side to, as we record this, 7th in the Premier League, 11 on points with Liverpool. He's having a phenomenal resurgence this season, and his impact on that side should not be underestimated, I don't think. The thing I think about Jordan Henderson, and I've made this point on a number of different pods, is that if you're looking at Jordan Henderson to come in there and provide veteran leadership in the dressing room, and Thomas Tuchel has lent on him a number of times for a variety of different things, including like leading warm-up sessions and things like that, bring him as a coach. Like, just bring him as a coach. If you're going to utilize him for what he brings to a dressing room, but you don't actually want him to play on the pitch, why could you not just bring him as an extra man within the staff? Because then you open up another space for someone who might genuinely play.
Maybe he doesn't want to.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want to.
It's a fair point, though. Do you have to take up the playing squad spot? But anyway, look, suddenly England do seem to have maybe a couple of options in that area. But let's just dial it all the way back to the key point, which is it's good to see Kobbie Mainoo playing football, and it's good to see him smiling, because it's been a difficult 6 months for him, and he's a talented player.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, the thing I love this week is the La Liga relegation battle, which is the most me thing of all time, I agree, but it's also just chaos down there. And if you look at the table currently, the difference in points between Rayo Vallecano, who are currently occupying the last relegation spot in 18th, and Getafe, who are 11th, is 4 points. Above that, Athletic in 10th are on 28, so they're still not out of it. And Osasuna, who are 2 places outside the European spots in 9th, are still only 7 points clear of Rayo Vallecano. Levante went through a little bit of a spell a couple of games ago where they won a big game against Elche, who have been a delight to watch for pretty much the entire season, but also who really need to start winning some games again. They had a brilliant start. At the weekend, Elche, who were 15th, they're currently 2 points above the relegation zone, went to Anoeta to play Real Sociedad and had 70% possession and got hammered 3-0. And you're like, what is going on? I don't understand what's happening. And look, you're seeing results like Mallorca hammering Sevilla on Monday last week. Sevilla there in 13th at the moment with 25 points, 3 points clear of Rayo. And you look at the way that all of these teams are picking up points. It's not just that sea of red at the bottom of the table as sometimes you see. It really does feel like almost anybody from Girona down. I think Getafe will be fine because Bordalas is, just good at this kind of stuff.
Sure.
But anyone from Girona down, and Girona had a bit of an upturn in form recently.
I'm not actually that worried about Girona right now, although things can change again.
Well, this is it. Like, I was really worried about Girona. I was like, they might genuinely get relegated, and then they lost 1 of 5 and then have picked up sort of 8 points in the last 5 games. And you're like, oh, wow, suddenly they're not 19th anymore, and they're actually up in mid-table. And we've been talking about this on the podcast recently because there was a real discussion. We have a few Real Sociedad fans amongst our patrons that we talk about quite a lot. And when we were talking about their kind of rise from, the edge of that relegation battle under Materazzo to currently 8th in the table, they still haven't lost a game in the league under Materazzo.
Yeah.
They've been absolutely sensational. And the only time they've dropped points is in that weird derby where Bryce Menzies was sent off against Athletic, which was a disgrace in so many different ways. Like, they are suddenly on the verge of the European places, 3 points behind Espanyol, who can't buy a win. It's just chaos from top to bottom. And all of these teams, when we were talking about Real Sociedad and there was a couple of good results, they were like, could we look up to the European places? I was like, let's get clear of the relegations battle first.
Yeah.
And actually, currently...
Only 3 weeks later.
They're neither, right? Like, they're now still, less than 10 points clear of the relegation zone, but also 3 off the European places. It really is an absolute scrap down there. I think it's going to be one of the most interesting things that's going to happen for the rest of the season.
Well, that just means that basically the entirety of La Liga is in question, and there's something to play at every level, because obviously Barcelona and Real Madrid can barely be separated at the top, 58 and 57 points, so they're back on it. Madrid with 6 wins in a row to close that gap back up. Obviously, there's always a race for 4th and 5th in La Liga, and then basically we're already down in 6th to Espanyol, who have lost 4 in a row and have plunged themselves back down towards Celta Vigo and Real Sociedad, as we talked about. So there is no part of this table that is cemented and clear, which probably means that La Liga will be the most interesting league to finish to follow over the final 10 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think you can make an argument for Serie A, which also has a cracking relegation scrap going on. But I do think the fact that pretty much everybody in the bottom half of the table not being anywhere near clear of this, like all being within a 4-point gap, is just an incredible thing to be witnessing from a perspective where you're standing away from it.
And also just the presence of some of these teams here, like,
the big guns.
But not just big guns like Sevilla and Valencia, but like very, very, very combustible big guns, like big names who can go so wrong at a moment's notice. Like Valencia are the absolute kings. They have this title, but Sevilla have given them a really good run for their money of late. So yeah, lots to figure out there, and no one is safe, particularly not Valencia. Jeez.
No.
I mean, I watched them against Madrid at the weekend, and they battled hard without ever really actually threatening ever. And I was like, that's not good. I can, like, Courtois could have got a deck chair out for 65 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, look,
oh no,
it wasn't great. And Real Madrid weren't great either, but they just found a way to win it. I mean, I think the thing is that, like, that 3-2 win, the 90+10 penalty they got against Espanyol in the middle of this poor Espanyol run, but Lagi Ramazani scoring that penalty and like backflipping in front of Mestalla and thinking, wow, okay, is this the flick they need? 2 wins in a row, and then suddenly it's like, okay, 2 losses in a row and straight back to earth from a La Liga perspective. So I just think it's going to be a very, very intriguing, something we'll be keeping an eye on for the rest of the season. Right, we're going to take a little break there. When we come back, we're going to be talking about these underrated players. Make sure you stick with us here on Ranks FC. Welcome back to Ranks FC. It's Jack Collins and Sam Ty here, and it's time for the Rank God to do a ranking. Someone's going to hand him the floor.
Very nice, yeah. I did tease that this was a tough one. I've given myself a very difficult assignment. Talking underrated players, I've got 3 names for you. I think these players are underrated. What does that mean? Very good question. I don't know exactly how all of you listening feel about these players. You might think, no, these players are great. You got this wrong. It's difficult. Depending on your social circles and the people you speak to, it's very hard to truly gauge how players are rated, particularly when it comes to fan bases versus neutrals. So I've tried to be as logical as possible here, and I've taken 3 players who I think have noted weaknesses, and I think those weaknesses are obscuring their many other talents, and that's what people focus on. So they get a lot of flack. The 3 players that I'm going to talk about, I know they get a lot of flack, and it might be that they get a little bit too much flack because there is maybe one glaring weakness or one egregious problem in their game which really clouds the rest of it. And I feel a bit bad for those players because they still do some good things. And in at number 3, this is the perfect player to start with. Look, I know he's not perfect, but he still does some good things, is Pedro Neto.
Right.
Who I'm sure that some Chelsea fans hearing that would have gone, oh God. I understand. I hear it. I hear you. When he sends his 15th cross in a row out of play, it's really annoying. It is. But the theme of this, which is these players are quite good at other stuff and therefore underrated, Neto does loads of really good stuff.
Yeah.
He just has this really one annoying thing. It's that end product on the cross, which is a big bugbear for a lot of fans, and I get it. But the amount of yards that Neto can gain on the counter-attack, the way he can carry the ball 60 yards, 70 yards, the way he fights through tackles, the fact that he can play left wing, right wing, and up front. He can genuinely deputise up front if you need to, and Maresca used him in that role a couple of times.
He was really good there, I thought.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good too, actually. He also was, I think he was up front in the that weird Old Trafford game where Rob Sanchez got sent off, and then he would have been a perfect player to continue playing that role on the counter, and Maresca hooked him. I was like, what are you doing? You've just found the perfect game state for Pedro Neto, and you hooked him really early.
Taking him away.
What are you doing? Overcomplicating things, unfortunately. But a lot of the time when Chelsea are actually under a bit of pressure and they need to just punt the ball up and find some territory, you can punt the ball to Pedro Neto and he'll win you half the pitch. It won't be pretty, but he'll get it done. We saw enough of this at Wolves to know that he was a very dangerous player with the ball at his feet. We've seen enough from him now to know that he can hit the ball really hard from outside the box, score some really good goals, and he can use both of his feet really well. I do find that people go a bit hard on Neto, and I understand why, because when a player doesn't have the end product, it is frustrating.
Yeah.
And when you see it every week, it can really grind on you. And I totally understand that. But I think Neto's in the underrated category. I think, unfortunately, there's one blemish on his game, which is clearly never going to be fixed, which means that he is underrated on the wider scale.
I think what's interesting about Pedro Neto is that if you consider Cole Palmer to be a number 10 as opposed to a winger, but even if you don't, right, Chelsea might have two wingers better than Pedro Neto in Cole Palmer and Esteval, although we're projecting a bit because we haven't seen probably enough of Esteval to know that the consistency is there. Yeah, but on what we have seen, on what the evidence we have, then Esteval obviously lights games up, makes things happen, totally understand. But if you consider Palmer a 10, then Pedro Neto is probably Chelsea's second best winger. And if that's the case, and look, I know that Palmer can play out wide, so therefore if they're playing Palmer and Esteval, then that makes a little bit more sense in terms of how they operate. But I don't think you want Esteval on the left wing, if I'm being honest with what we've seen from him.
No.
So if you want both Palmer and Esteval on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side you have Garnacho or Gittins or Pedro Neto, I'm taking Pedro Neto every single day of the week and twice on Sundays to play in that role. And I think that when you look at what he brings in terms of work rate, what he brings in terms of being able to find space when space doesn't seem to exist, and that ability, as you talk about, to be able to bring you up the pitch and keep you there. And yet I totally understand the misgivings, right? And I'm not suggesting that Pedro Neto is the perfect player. But I think when you look at the options that Chelsea have, especially on that left-hand side, and he's not playing, I think you lose something. And I agree with you that we're at a point now where sometimes the frustrations with him boil over, and that's totally reasonable. We all get frustrated with our own players, on a regular basis. But I think if you offered Pedro Neto to most sides, they would probably take him, even if it was a swing option to come off the bench or make a difference. I don't think there's many sides who would be turning down a deal for Pedro Neto if he was offered at a reasonable price. And that probably does speak to what he does bring to the table. Like if Liverpool were offered Pedro Neto right now, I think they would sign him.
Yeah, I also think City might take him. I think City might look at him and go, I think you're better than Savio. So, yeah, we'll have you. That could easily happen, yeah. I will accept that Pedro Neto is effectively that meme of the two men on the bus on each side of the top deck of the bus. One's looking out of one window and everything's nice and sunny, and the other one's looking and it's very miserable. The miserable one is Pedro Neto's end product. The one looking out on the sunny side and dreaming is everything up until that point. And I think my point here is that everything up until that point is still something and it still counts. And actually, the array of things that he can do up until that point is still pretty damn impressive.
I think what's interesting about Pedro Neto is that you're probably right in that we're not going to see a vast and distinct improvement in his crossing ability at this point in his career, right? But there might be a way that a coach who wants to get the best out of him sees the kind of bit beforehand and goes, I tell you what, Pedro, when you get to the byline, just chop back and find the pass, and you've carried us up the pitch then, and we've kept the ball, and the opening has happened. And I know that turning around and going backwards is currently the least in vogue thing in the Premier League, with fans wandering around singing sideways and backwards everywhere we go. But equally, if every cross is sailing out of play, then you probably do want to keep the ball in those situations, especially with the array of crosses that Chelsea do have at their disposal to be able to put the ball into dangerous areas and the underlaps and the overlaps that can be found within this team. If they can find a way of utilising that first bit without necessarily needing him to swing the ball in from the byline on a regular basis, that maybe changes the picture of how Pedro Neto is appreciated.
Good player. Find a way to utilise him better.
Yes, I'd agree.
And then everyone will be happier. Chelsea fans, but also me. So that's everyone.
Right, that is absolutely everyone.
In this context,
everyone who matters right now.
Everyone that matters. Right, into number 2. Abdulkadir Kuzanov. Interesting one. Made a pretty bad mistake on his debut.
No one's let him forget it since.
Yeah, just about a year ago. And he actually, about 5 minutes later, made a tremendous goal-saving tackle. About 5 minutes after that mistake, which no one apart from me remembers.
I'm sure there are some City fans.
Yeah, there probably are, yeah. But I think from a wider perception, I think that really marked his page pretty badly from the off. And
yeah, my radio co-host Tom Rennie still calls him Calamity Kusanov.
Yeah,
a nickname that he's been stuck with.
Yeah,
makes me really sad.
It's really sad. Yeah. And look, it's not like he was perfect ever since. There are kinks to his game. He's very young. You can tell from the way he plays that he is inexperienced. Moving up the steps in football very, very quickly, probably a little bit too quickly, if we're being honest. And in situations where a City side right now that we've consistently called quite fragile this season, stepping into that defensive line, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for anyone, let alone someone who has played not that much top-level football, having hailed from Uzbekistan. It's quite a remarkable career trajectory. And he's had some injuries. He's had to play right back. He's played at centre back. I do have some issues with some of the stuff that he's done over the last 3-4 months.
He's played 40 games in Liga and the Premier League combined.
There you go.
Which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, that's not many. It's really not very many games. And they bought him because they see immense potential in him, and I think it's there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speed, a lot of recovery pace. There's also a lot of quickness. One of the things that I noticed in him when he was playing in France, and I watched him. I was sat next to a professional football scout and was asking him questions about Kuzanov because I was trying to understand the process that they would go through when analysing centre backs, because it's a tricky thing to do.
Yeah,
he was really keen to point out to me, it's not just recovery speed. It's not that he can run at 34 kilometres an hour, which is great, obviously. Look at how he accelerates and decelerates. Look at how quickly he pivots and moves and turns. He's agile. His physical profile is basically perfect. And that's probably why he ended up playing a bit of right back, because Pep was like, you can actually swing your hips.
I was going to bring this out, but yeah.
You probably why he ended up doing that, because he was the best option at the time. He's just probably a little bit too aggressive. And he does kind of motor through people a bit. He's got a bit of the Sergio Romero about him in terms of the way he goes through tackles. But he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. And so I look at Kuzanov and I see a physical profile that you would just absolutely die for in the Premier League right now. I see incredible potential. I see a few issues, but people think he's rubbish, genuinely, and that's because he made a mistake in his first game. He's been in and out due to injury. He's had to play out of position. And recently, because he had to step into the City defensive line when they lost Vardiol and Diaz at the same time, which would throw any team into disarray, and he wasn't great immediately, again, people were like, he's rubbish. The one thing I've seen him do this season that I was like, that's just not good enough, is the Mbermo goal that United scored, obviously, in the derby recently. I thought his positioning in terms of backtracking was way off. His angles were way off. I was watching it on the reverse camera and I was like, he's got that completely wrong. Hopefully he watches that and never does that again. But to hammer the point home, 40-odd games.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the first time he's had a streak of games for City, right? And he's now played 7 games in a row. He came on in that Chelsea game, and then he's had Brighton, Man United, Wolves, Tottenham, Liverpool in the Premier League, and then also those 2 games against Bodo Glimt, which again wasn't great, and then against Galatasaray in the Champions League. So this is the first time we've seen him make a number of consistent appearances. And so obviously there are going to be an element of some growing pains with this. And part of that is on the club and managing it, but also when you get thrown into difficult circumstances, as City have been recently, we look at the recall for Max Allane and you're thinking, wow, they've thrown the kid in there. not that much younger. Like legitimately not that much younger than Kusanov, and with not that much less experience either. And yet, because there was a big fee paid for Kusanov, which is natural because he's not come from within the area or within your academy system, people judge him to a different light, which, okay, is fine and to be expected, because ultimately you have to work to the profiles that you're given.
You paid 32 million for a centre-back, they're going to need to be good. Yeah, sure.
But equally, if you've brought in a centre-back there with the idea that he's actually going to sit behind Ruben Diaz and Gvardiol for 2 years and learn the tricks of the trade and kind of slowly increase those minutes until he feels ready for it, and then suddenly he has to play 10 games in a row because everyone else has got injured, that changes the trajectory as well. I think he's really good. I just think that we're at a point here where City feel fragile. Bear in mind that, for much of these games, Rodri has either been absent or not back to his best yet in terms of the way that they're sweeping up and the way the midfield is conducted. We're talking about City at the moment and thinking, well, if you actually look back at the players that are playing regularly, who's left from the season that they end up winning the treble? It's like Bernardo, Erling Haaland, Rodri. Like
Stones doesn't play.
Like there's not much consistency. This has been a real kind of hard reset for City. And yes, they've spent a lot of money. No one's kind of contesting that. But in terms of hot and pepper, apparently. But you actually look at it and think, well, it makes sense to be in the middle of this rebuild and to be sort of blooding new players and making them feel like they're part of a system that's going to last for the next couple of years. There are going to be teething problems. Nothing is going to be perfect straight away. But when you kind of put them in these situations, I think for the most part, he's been really quite good.
Dropped a kid into a team who is literally having an identity crisis and told him to sink or swim in the absence of Ruben Diaz and Josko Gvardiol in the space of like 20 minutes. You're going to get a couple of growing pains. But I think Kusanov's going to be a really, really good centre-back. Like I think he has all the tools. And he has the physical profile. If you can just control that aggression a little bit more, keep the sort of the bottled up anger in his game, but just as Harry Brooks would say, it's like that composed aggression. That
keep the dog in it.
Yeah, just I don't think that's keep the genie in the bottle. I don't know, whatever it is, just measure it properly. The worst that can happen is this guy turns into like a Christian Romero style centre back.
Which is still
really, really good. But if you can control it a little bit more, I think he could go higher. Like I'm pretty big on Kusanov, and it saddens me when people just say he sucks. So I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I like him very much, and I think he's going to be a very, very interesting player to follow in the next couple of years. All right, then, who's number one?
Number one, another centre back.
You love centre backs.
Apparently. I don't know if I do, but apparently I do today. Well, actually, no. This is probably a point, isn't it? I think people probably find centre backs harder to evaluate, or maybe just don't watch them as closely.
Yeah.
So the levels in terms of ratings and the way people perceive them will probably be a bit wilder than they would be for Cole Palmer or something. This is Marcos Senesi of Bournemouth, someone that we've seen play a Conference League final.
Yes, indeed,
in the flesh. I won't be mentioning much of that today, but it's a good memory nonetheless. Senesi is really, really good.
Yeah.
Underrated for, I think, two reasons. One, plays for Bournemouth.
I've seen Hyson that much on the list.
Well, no, it didn't. But Dean Hyson had a Roma and Juventus on his CV. And immediately people were like, Real Madrid. So no one's done that with Senesi, although I do think he's going to get a really, really good move in the summer. But
I hope for Bournemouth's sake he doesn't.
I think he's going to walk, and he's going to go somewhere really good. We'll get to that a little bit later. I think so. Playing for Bournemouth, I think naturally just hits you a little bit in terms of stock. It will for everyone. Like people will not realise how good you are until it's too late or until you've moved. Or you do something insane like, score 20 league goals in 18 months like Antoine Semenyo did. But even then people were like, really? I don't know. And the other reason is that Senesi has, to be fair, been at the centre of a couple of our controversies this season. And that will also mark your card. Like if you should have been sent off and if you've somehow evaded a red card twice, despite the panel suggesting otherwise, then it is that imprints on people's memories. The first game of this season was Senesi getting away with one on the halfway line, and this is what people remember.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing as Kusanov really early making a huge mistake. Okay, there is a bit of Senesi. There's 10% of his game which is a bit wild. I will absolutely accept that. What people maybe don't see is the other 90% of it, which is not wild. It's brilliant. Like, he's really good. He's actually quite a lot better than I thought he would ever be. And that's I'm paying that as a huge compliment to him. His passing range is phenomenal. He can control his aggression and he can win his duels on halfway. He has the physical profile and he's left-footed. If he doesn't leave Bournemouth this summer, if he doesn't sign a new deal, he is going to go somewhere like really impressive. And I don't know where that will be, but let me just run this scenario by you. Rumours linking Pau Torres to Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say I can pick myself back up off the floor long enough to think about who could replace him. Michael Senesi. I think he's a Champions League level footballer. He's really, really good. I just don't think people realise it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a couple of things that count against him. So I think there's an interesting thing here about where he sits in the public consciousness. And part of it is to do with last year, obviously, Hyson and Zabani took over from him as the kind of first choice centre-back partnership.
Because of an injury.
Right? But ultimately, Bournemouth got quite a lot better at that moment. And defensively, people were like, wow, look at the impact. And it was mostly because Hyson came into the team and Dean Hyson is really good, right?
Real Madrid's Dean Hyson.
Real Madrid's Dean Hyson, yeah. But you look at that and you think, what happened last year with Bournemouth? Well, they conceded 46 goals in their 38 games in the Premier League. Now, I haven't broken this down because Senesi did play, a fair number of those, a fair chunk of those, and how they conceded goals and where they conceded goals isn't included in this. But you flip it and they've already conceded 44 goals in the 25 games of this season. And people were like, well, Zabani and Hyson aren't there. That's a reasonable reason to concede more goals, as far as I'm concerned. If one of your centre-backs signs for European champions PSG and one of them signs for Real Madrid, I think it is reasonable for you to get worse defensively. But Senesi has come back into that back line. Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting is that people are like, oh, we've gone back to Senesi. And there have been question marks about what his defence looks like. People are also forgetting that the rest of the defence also kind of left.
So they all left. And also, he's had 3 distinct different centre-back partners this season alone.
Yeah. This isn't to disagree with you.
No.
I think it's to kind of discuss some of the reasons why he's underappreciated.
I think people will look at Bournemouth and say they're not that good defensively, so probably none of their defenders are that good.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fair way to work.
Yeah, it's very reasonable as a concept, but it doesn't mean you should write players off. And I think that what's been interesting is seeing the different players that he's had to kind of play alongside due to injury, or when Diakate came in, we were all like, "Oh, okay, that's an interesting partnership."
Yeah, because it's new and interesting, right? So it's like if I look,
but that's an interesting partnership as well as anything else, right? They have a lot of the traits that the other don't. There's some very, very interesting bits about that. But his injury, and he's played with James Hill in there as well.
James Hill's done really well.
James Hill has done really well,
and you know
he's a fullback, masquerading as a centre back.
But the thing is as well. So watching Bournemouth at the weekend, the commentators would not stop talking about how well James Hill had assimilated.
Yeah.
And this is another part of it. This is not a criticism for praising James Hill.
No.
It's just one of those things where it's like the focus is always somewhere else because Senesi's just kind of always there. There's been so many different things happening in Bournemouth's team this year, so many different things to focus on, so many things that are changing, so many injuries, different forwards that like Krupi scoring bangers all the time, Ryan stepping in and looking like the second coming of Adriano. There's so many things that are happening at Bournemouth that the one dude that is just always there and really good it's just not news.
Yeah.
So like all of these things may be conspiring to the point where maybe Marco Senesi's not getting his flowers. And what's a podcast for?
Yeah.
If it's not to give someone their flowers.
If it's not to give Marco Senesi his flowers. I mean, what is Ranks FC actually here for? These are the kind of the things we do, yeah. And look, I also think he's excellent. I am interested. I had a little look about where the interest was hanging around from in the summer. And the one thing that's plastered everywhere is Everton desperate to sign Marco Senesi.
Sure they are.
Which is totally fair enough, and I would completely understand. But also, it was not quite what I had in mind when you were like, I think he's off for a really big move this summer.
I'd no disrespect to Everton, I'd say possibly aiming a little bit higher than that. But you know what? Does he want to go and get into a battle with Jared Branthwaite for the left centre back spot? I don't know.
I don't think so. No, I don't think that's what you want to do at all.
No,
if I was him. But look, there's plenty of teams who are going to be in need. If Nico Schlotterbeck is moving somewhere this summer, then Borussia Dortmund are going to need someone in that slot. If Pau Torres goes, as you say, then Aston Villa are going to need someone in that slot.
Inter, if Bastoni was to move on, yeah, absolutely. The left centre back market, there could be a bit of a carousel. It could force something, and Senesi's kind of like whoever runs out of like really seriously like blue chip ideas, like who can I spend £50 million on? Once that well is dry, and there's only like 3 of them anyway, Senesi will be the first one. Like he could easily end up at a Juventus caliber or better.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a wonderful player, and I've enjoyed him for a while. And whilst obviously Bournemouth kind of struck gold last year from a financial perspective, at the very least, in getting Hyson and Zabani in, and then basically be like, right, time to flip very, very quickly for these two. I think that they will be upset that they're not going to get a fee from Marco Senesi if he doesn't sign a new contract, because I think he's a player that could have commanded a £30 million fee, and that's quite a lot for a centre back who's 28 years old.
Yeah, it is. It's a big shame for them, but I suppose they've had quite a big windfall, so maybe they'll be okay. Shout out to Bournemouth for scouting centre backs, by the way. Just like, it's very hard. Yeah, a lot of clubs get it really wrong. I've got a piece coming up very soon on ESPN about which clubs are really good at scouting in specific positions. So I've picked out a bunch of different teams that are like really good in certain areas, and Bournemouth and centre backs is one of them. They're renowned through the industry for their process of identifying really good centre backs, and the record speaks for itself. Like Senesi probably isn't going to go and move for a big fee, but that doesn't change things. And obviously, you know, the hit rate with Hyson and Zabani going to Madrid and PSG, it's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, what this means is that next year when we're watching Bafodé Diakite and Velikio Milivojevic playing together and just absolutely dominating the Premier League, we'll know where to look.
We will indeed, yeah.
Absolutely. Right, we're going to take a little break there. When we come back on the other side of it, we're going to do a quick fire round of players who might be underrated and might be not. We'll get to it. Stick with us. Welcome back to part 3 of Ranks FC. We're going to do some quickfire underrated. So effectively what's going to happen here is I'm going to throw some names at Sam. I'm just going to discuss them. We're going to discuss them and see if we think that they're underrated or appropriately rated.
Or overrated.
But we're going to start with a goalkeeper who we've talked a lot about this year, but I think has gone from being in the conversation of the worrying part of the team to someone who's really started to dominate his own box and actually has become one of the most reliable parts of said team. There's Robert Sanchez at Chelsea.
Okay, interesting. I would say, right, speaking as someone who is really just has never been his biggest fan, admittedly, I would say that he's drifting into the underrated category. Mostly because, and this is it's something that we're going to be coming back to time and time again. For the most part, Robert Sanchez has been very, very good this season, but he's done a couple of really bad things. Yeah, like really, really bad things.
Like the red card at Man United.
The red card at Man United, and the one he let under his hands. I forget who it was very recently. Forgive me. Just like 2 goals very quickly, and one of them just kind of went straight through him. Not good enough. These incidents affirm previous biases. So if you already didn't think Robert Sanchez was very good, of which there are a lot of people that do not think he's very good, those people may have missed that he's had a very solid season, but they see those moments. They're like, they've got to sort the goalkeeper out. So that's where he starts to drift into underrated territory, because the very consistently good performances he's shown over the course of the season are basically just swamped out, aren't they, by a couple of moments. It's just the way football works.
I mean, I've got to the point with Robert Sanchez where I have started actively defending him quite a lot, because there have been points. And look, last summer and even before that, we looked at this Chelsea team and we're like, why are you not just going and spending £20 million on buying Mike Maignan? Which, to be fair, I still kind of think that they should have done.
Agreed.
What it's worth, and it doesn't change that as an idea. But since they gave Robert Sanchez the license to kick the ball long when he wanted to get rid of it when he needed to, he has just gone back to doing all the things of his game that were just very solid beforehand. So he's always been a very, very good shot stopper, right? Like, that's never really changed. What I think he's really grown in is his ability to claim the ball and dominate his box. And in an era, and there's something we're going to talk about in The Truth on Friday, in an era where set pieces and crosses and physicality has become ever more prominent within the Premier League in particular, I think that having a goalkeeper who is able to dominate in those areas, and look, I watched Bernd Leno punch the ball into the back of his own net at the weekend because he couldn't get around Jake O'Brien. And again, good shot stopper, but really struggles with crosses and really struggles with dominating his box. And that's the difference at the moment in terms of why Fulham are conceding more goals than we have been in recent years. It's because set pieces are really, really hurting us. And in that era, considering where Robert Sanchez is, in terms of what he is as a player, I don't think he's ever going to be a goalkeeper that you look at and say, oh yeah, one of the best in the world. I don't think Robert Sanchez has a particularly strong claim to start for Spain at the World Cup. But I do think that what he's done for Chelsea this year has been criminally underrated because he's been a big, big part of why this has got more solid over the course of the year as a whole, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And just to quickly back you up on that one, crosses claimed statistic for goalkeepers this season in the Premier League. Top is Robin Roofs, 41. Second is Emi Martinez, 38. You expect him to be there. Rob Sanchez is third in the league for crosses claimed, 34 in total, 7 clear of the next one, which is Nick Pope and Georgi Petrovic. So in the top 3, really good. A massively improved part of his game. I've noticed it too. Much more commanding.
Yeah.
And there's no better way to instill confidence in your team as a goalkeeper.
And your fan base.
Especially
if they're not sure about you.
For sure. If you could just come and pluck that ball out of the air, it just makes everyone sink back into their seat for 30 seconds to go, oh, thank God for that.
Yeah. And they start to add up. So, yeah. Shouts out to Robert Sanchez. We're recording this before the Chelsea Leeds game. If he's thrown the ball into the back of his net 3 times, I apologise.
Oh, God.
Right, let's go to number 2 here where I've got Calvin Bassey.
Oh, of course you've got underrated.
Yes and no.
You know, he's in my little note on my phone.
As
the note that's titled "Defenders Who Think They're Strikers."
Oh yeah, 100%. He definitely has that trait within him. Look, I really like Calvin Bassey, and I think his performances at the AFCON with Nigeria were particularly impressive because he was a one-man wall for parts of that tournament. He really did hold it all together. Calvin Bassey is really good for 90% of the season. Like 90% of the time, Calvin Bassey is absolutely excellent. 10% of the time, he is absolutely honking. And like he has like one game in every 6 or 7 where you're just like, what are you doing, Calv? Like, what are you up to? And there's just not what I need today. You're just like trying to like monster a striker and getting rolled. But I think that actually the thing that made me put him here is that Joachim Andersen gets a lot of plaudits from a Fulham perspective, right? And not necessarily from the fan base, but I think from people looking in at the club. You know, added a lot of calmness to that back line. The diagonal balls are always something to enjoy for everyone else. But on the whole, I think Joachim Andersen really struggles unless he has physical players around him. And in this period where both Kenny Tete and Calvin Bassey have been out of the team for one reason or another, with Timothy Castagna on one side and Jorge Cuenca, who's a good player but nowhere near as physically dominant as Bassey is, I think that Andersen has looked very, very targetable. And the fact that he doesn't look that targetable when Bassey's next to him, I think is testament to just how good a player Calvin Bassey is in terms of reading situations.
I think fair enough. I'm not going to disagree with that. You watch him every minute of every day of every week.
I still don't think that like a top 4 side should sign him.
No.
I don't think that the capability that Calvin Bassey has is enough to move the needle for a Champions League side. No. But I think he probably could move into a Newcastle, for example, and challenge for and help them challenge up the league. And I don't mean that in disrespect to Newcastle as like not a Champions League, so they literally are in the Champions League. But in terms of a team in that next bracket who are sort of in the conversation for Europa Champions League year in, year out, to help them push up the table, I think that Calvin Bassey would be quite a good signing.
It's come a long way at least. Because the Ajax move went so badly, and he was actually a calamity at that point. Mm-hmm. Off the back of the Rangers season it just went so poorly for him. So he has actually had to work back quite hard from quite a low point, I would say. I think people are generally aware of his qualities and think he's a solid player.
He stepped in for Tim Remir, who was a big part of this Fulham team, right, for so many years. To actually replace him and in a very different style and in every different way to have earned this spot there, I think is impressive. All right, let's move on. Got another centre-back for you. Omar Alderete.
Oh, now who likes centre-backs?
Yeah, well, we have it. I only have 2 here, so, give me some brief.
I only had 2?
You have 2 out of 3. I have 2 out of 10. my ratios, my per 90s are better than yours. Yeah. Omar Alderete, Sunderland. I think a lot of people give Dan Ballard the credit, Nordi Mukiele the credit. I think Alderete has been excellent, just very quietly alongside them.
I agree. I've been really impressed with him. I was not expecting this much from him. This is potentially my bias is showing, but just like I just basically didn't believe that a player who played for Bordalas at Getafe could be this well-rounded. And it's just a silly thing to say, but it's obviously just a case of like, no one has unlimited bandwidth. I haven't watched very much of him. You do make assumptions based on team styles.
Weirdly, I remember him more from his time at Valencia than I do for his time at Getafe.
Right.
And so there is an element of me that like thinks about it and was like, oh yeah, I did see quite a nice footballer there. And
I just see that guy.
Was obviously moulded a little bit by Bordalas under Getafe to improve the defensive side of his game, which I think actually was the weakest bit of it at Valencia.
Yeah. So I think he's really good. I would imagine many people have not really bothered to pay attention to anything that Omar Alderete has done this season. But I do remember when he got injured for 3 weeks, Doogie was losing his mind, which tells you a lot.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's roll onwards. Let's get out of defence. We'll go to a player that I have been screaming from the hilltops about for years. Matthias Jensen at Brentford, who I just think is unbelievable. Just absolutely adore. I am stunned every time. Like Christian Norgard left Brentford this summer and went to Arsenal. And I was there being like, has no one clocked that Jensen is just better than Norgard by like a country mile?
Do you think he's that much better?
Oh, yeah. Like Jensen can do everything.
Yeah, I know you really like him. You always used to say that Klopp should sign him for Liverpool.
Liverpool could really do with Matthias Jensen right now.
For like the last 6 years.
They could still do with him. The point is that like this man is running a team who are currently 7th in the league.
Yeah, he started the season out of the team, out of favour.
Yeah.
Janelt, Henderson, Yarmolyuk. He's had to fight.
Yarmolyuk's really good.
He had to fight his way back into this team.
I got so much time for Matthias Jensen.
I don't think he's as good as you think he is. Okay. I think he's fine.
Okay.
I think he's fine. I think he's probably appropriately rated. You need to calm down.
I just don't see that many players as well-rounded as him who can do so many different things. You know what he reminds me of a bit? Like a Mikel Merino. Not in terms of like the output, but in terms of if you ask Matthias Jensen to be your number 6, he will just be your number 6 for the game. If you ask him to be a box-to-box 8, which I think is what he's best at, he will get up and down, he will shuttle, he will make things happen. If you ask him to be a 10, he creates. Like he did at the weekend against Newcastle, he was absolutely brilliant.
And he can play slightly wider as well in like a narrowish 4.
Yeah, I love players who are just like able to be coached or like they're given instructions and just do the job they're being asked to do. If he's playing at 6, he won't just suddenly be like, oh, maybe I'll just pop up at 10. It's exactly the same thing that I praise Merino for a lot. And I think Jensen has just that kind of discipline to do what he's told to do and what he needs to do in a team, and it makes other things function, which I think is a really important part of the game. But anyway, we'll move onwards. Let's go to Leandro Trossard at Arsenal.
Why have you put him in?
I'm just intrigued. I think he's one of those players that kind of divides opinion a little bit.
Well, we disagreed on him, didn't we? Back in the day. Turns out I was wrong. So Trossard is like, when you put on... Football is not played on paper, obviously. It is not a game of fantasy. But when you put Arsenal's best 11 on paper, he is not in it.
I agree.
However, when they play football on a pitch, he's usually there. So that has to count for something. And I feel like he has stuck around in this team. And not only that does him a disservice. He's played a really important part for this team. No matter how good they've been, as they've got better and better, he has stuck around in the team, and Arteta has continually turns to him. And he's always on the pitch when they play Liverpool. He's always on the pitch when they play City. He's always picked up for the big games. He's asked to play a bit of left wing, a bit of up front. Now can you just drop in here and we'll make a box with the 4 midfielders and you can come in here. He's way better than I thought he was ever going to be. He keeps scoring against Villa, so I hate him. So I'm going to call him overrated. But I understand exactly why he's in this list, because I think he serves a huge purpose for this team. But it's a contradiction because he's technically not in the best 11 on paper.
Yeah, there's a few players like this, though, like down the years, where people be like, actually, if you pick this team and whoever they are, whether it's Real Madrid or Barcelona or one of the top sides in the Premier League, if you pick the team on FIFA, right, like certain players just don't get in the side. but actually the team functions worse without them.
Yeah.
And I think that Trossard is one of those players.
I think so too.
It doesn't like set the world on fire. I think sometimes he's misprofiled. I think in terms of what you want from him, you don't want Trossard out on the wing trying to beat a man one-on-one. You want him coming onto opportunities and firing into the bottom corner. You want him to open up those opportunities for him to score goals and finish things off. And sometimes I think with Arsenal, they get the ball out to him and he's like 2-on-1. You're like, he's just not getting through that gap. That's mad.
Yeah.
But
he's a proper finisher though, isn't he?
he is, yeah. He has a
like,
really
is he like a really like slow version of Dries Mertens?
Yes, I like that comparison.
Like,
he's not really slow.
You're a bit, well, no, because Dries Mertens was rapid.
Yeah.
But the way Mertens was like, he doesn't really play left wing. He doesn't really play out front. He just kind of exists in pockets.
Yeah.
But if you get him running onto the ball, it will go in.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, if the team was geared towards Trossard, I wouldn't be surprised if he scored 20 goals in a season.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Although I don't think that team wins the league.
And I don't think they should be that team.
No.
To be clear, like you definitely don't hand the keys to this team to Trossard.
No.
He's more than happy as a complementary part. But yeah, he always finds his way onto the pitch. He always plays the big games. And I think that's instructive. We should pay attention to that stuff.
Do we think Arsenal missing out on Mikhailo Mudryk and signing Leandro Trossard might be one of the great sliding doors moments in football?
Yes, I think so. Goodness me.
There you go. All right. Lewis Hall.
Interesting.
A lot of Newcastle fans will like die on the hill that Lewis Hall is the best left back in the Premier League.
Yes.
Not just the best English left back in the Premier League, but the best left back in the Premier League.
Okay.
Now, I think that's a stretch. If I'm honest, I think the best left back in the league is probably Marco Correa. But if you're looking at it,
Maybe Calafiore.
maybe Calafiore, but also Arsenal left backs aren't really left backs. So it's a bit one of those kind of hard ones to gauge. But I do think that Lewis Hall is really good. But I also can't tell you why I think he's really good. And that I think is the really like difficult thing to discuss about him.
Yes, Newcastle fans I know are really hot on him.
Yeah.
And he's the player that they are desperate to tell you is brilliant. There's always something in that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
He is how do you describe him? Very good in possession, very secure in possession. Takes set pieces, so like some of his numbers do get a little bit inflated.
Yeah,
you do need to be a little bit wary of that. But generally speaking, I think he delivers a really good ball, and I think he's a very good player to have on the ball, and he's very good in terms of press resistance. So I think I can understand where they're coming from, and I do like him. Every time I watch him, I think he plays well.
Yeah,
I
very rarely see him have a bad game.
Although I'll asterisk that by saying that recently Newcastle have been quite poor. And players like him and Malik Chow, they look exhausted. I think Lewis Hall's been carrying a knock for about 6 weeks, and they just don't have anybody else because Tino Livramento is carrying more than a knock. He's got an actual injury. So,
and it all went badly when Big Dan Burn played left back again.
Yeah, so
especially against Brentford.
Yeah,
I know it didn't end any better this time.
And I can't even put Trippier there anymore because Trippier just gets roasted every time he plays. So they don't really have a choice. They're just flogging him. So I think he doesn't look as good as he could right now. I think Lewis Hall at his absolute best. And there were a couple of games early this season. He played really well against Chelsea, I think, actually. I think it was that one. He can look excellent. But I don't see that all the time. Maybe not quite his fault. So maybe he is appropriately rated.
Okay.
I don't think he's the best left back in the Premier League.
No, nor do I.
Do
you think he should be on the plane?
Yeah, I think he should. I think he should. What would I do? But the thing is, I think I'd play Tino Livramento at left back for England. That's what I actually think. I think Newcastle's right back is England's best left back, and Newcastle's best left back is England's third best left back, or something like that. So it's a bit of a difficult one. Yes, I'd take him.
Anyway, you don't need to worry about it. Ryan Sessegnon will be starting left back for England in the summer.
Of course.
Right, James Garner.
Excellent player.
Okay.
Excellent player. Very well rounded. Does most things really well. Is the Mark Gay of centre mids. 7 out of 10 every area. He's really grown on me. Some of his numbers are a bit juiced from set pieces.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like, as in, you still have to take the set pieces well.
Of course. And he's a really good set piece taker.
Everyone's taking set pieces now anyway, so like all the numbers are juiced.
Yeah, true. This is what I whenever Doogie talks about Nico Paz, I'm like, set pieces. Just go pull down the facade. I think, Garner's really grown on me. A couple of years ago, I didn't see much of a footballer in him. And that's probably more to do with his environment surrounding, because he was out on loan. He went to Forest, didn't he, for a bit. And I remember one of the patrons, Andy Merckx, was like, "What do you think of Garner?" And I'm like, "Not much to get excited about." I retract that. I think he's really good. To be fair, he's still not the most thrilling footballer, but
No, he's not.
When you've got a guy who could do all of that in midfield, and he can also play right back and left back to a pretty competent level, yeah, not bad.
Should United sign him back?
To play where?
Centre mid.
No,
Rotative.
no, they shouldn't. No, they should aim higher.
But underrated, Garner?
Underrated for sure. Yeah, there was a little story that came out at the end of the window that Villa had put the feelers out to have a look at James Garner because his contract was set to expire, and the reaction was not a very positive one from the Villa fans. Oh, why? Sorry, what?
Yeah, we'll have that. We'll have that play. We're talking of Villa. Emi Buendia,
Overrated.
do you reckon?
Yeah,
Just score screamers.
yeah. I mean, he's obviously
He's
playing.
done a very good job to work his way back into this team. I will give him that.
Oh, you have to give him an immense amount of credit. But even amongst this run of form, which has been overwhelmingly positive, and even with the screamers and the brilliant goals and the last minute against Arsenal and things like that, the Newcastle goal, they're all great goals. He'll still go 20 minutes where he can't trap a ball. And it's very frustrating. And there are still times, and there's nothing he can do about this, there are still times where a Premier League game just looks too big and strong for him. Because he's a little lad, and he's feisty. My wife calls him Angry Man. I don't think she knows his name. She just calls him Angry Man.
Great. Fantastic.
Because he's always fighting. He's scrappy. He's like if you were on a Premier League pitch.
Yeah.
But he's trying to level the playing field. He's trying to do what he can do. Sometimes the players just tower over him. So there are just periods of games or even entire halves where, more than once he's been taken off at halftime this season because he's just not in the game at all, just getting bullied out of it or whatever. You have to keep that in mind when you also balance it out with the legitimately brilliant performances that he's put in at times and the unbelievable goals that he scored. So because people tend to focus on the highlights and the goals, right? It's the same conversation over again.
It's the reverse of the goalkeeper thing.
Yeah. I think he's probably overrated.
Okay, good time to sell.
Sell high.
Sell high. Right, two more. Lewis Miley.
Ooh.
So I'm really, really high on Lewis Miley. I think he's excellent.
Yeah, he's really good.
I think that you have to do so much to be able to slot into this Newcastle midfield, as we've seen from other players trying to do it, and feel like you fit in.
Yeah, he looked undroppable about a month ago.
I would still don't think you can have a Willock, playing in this team at the same time as a Ramsey.
Yeah,
right. They're the same player. You can't have two of them in there. But Lewis Miley has made a real kind of show of being like, I can kind of do a bit of all of this. And again, I'm talking about players who can play multiple positions and are disciplined enough to do it. Look, it doesn't mean he's been excellent in every game. I think there have been games that have passed him by. I really hated when Eddie Howe decided to play him at right wing back against PSG. That really didn't look particularly comfortable.
He had looked very good at right back in previous games.
Yeah.
Out of necessity, sure. But
not a right wing back.
No,
it's a different thing.
It's a whole different thing again. Yeah.
But I think the fact that he has been played in these positions shows you how much faith there is in him as a footballer already.
He's also dropped into centre back for an emergency 10 to 15 minutes, which is a hell of a thing to do. He lost almost an entire season, didn't he, to a back injury? Yeah. He could have been even further along right now. And he's already at a great place, considering he's still very young. He looks about 12.
Yes, so he does look young. But famously, I'm not going to hold that against anyone.
No. I'm a big fan of Lewis Miley. I think people think he's good. I think he might be appropriately rated.
Do you? I don't think people have quite clocked what he's doing. Every time I hear commentary about Newcastle from pundits or on podcasts or whatever, there's a lot being like, well, if they had Joel Linton and Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali together in the midfield, then they'd probably win this game. And
actually, their best midfield doesn't have Joel Linton anymore. It has Lewis Miley.
That's what I mean. And actually, quite a lot of these games have had Bruno and Sandro and Lewis Miley in there together. And I don't think we've quite got to the point where he's established himself in the greater public consciousness as part of Newcastle's best midfield yet, but I think he is there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. All right. Final one. Michael Carrick. Now,
right.
There's a reason I've put him in.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of people, and look, on Friday's Truth, we're going to talk about set pieces. So make sure you're locked in, subscribed, etc., etc., etc. But a lot of people think Michael Carrick is long throws and nothing more.
A pair of arms, and that's it.
And like I think that people look at him and like, oh yeah, he chucks the ball in. I think he's really genuinely excellent.
Yeah.
Like, I think he carries the ball really brilliantly. I think he makes things happen. He's a kind of weird sparky player from right back who can kind of like open up a game with a weird dribble or drive forward.
Gangly legs that don't look like they could do a dribble, and then bang, he's gone past two players, squeezed through that little gap. He's powered past that one.
And most of the time, he's a really good one-on-one defender as well. Not always, and there are points about his game that I think you're like, okay, it's all looking a little bit all over the place. He can get a bit discombobulated. But I do think that he is far more of a player than people give him credit for, as opposed to a pair of arms.
This is the problem when you're so good at one thing.
Yeah,
and it's not.
Even forget that Rory Delap was also quite a good footballer.
Yeah, was it? Yeah. No, I do. I do remember. Yeah. Although, to be fair, I forgot. Like, so I did a piece this season on long throws for ESPN, and I had to go back and check which position Rory Delap played. Now the trick was that he played a couple of different positions. That's why that's why I couldn't clock it in. But I had to go back and be like, do I actually remember anything about, like, do I remember? Is there a scene in my head where Rory Delap kicked a ball? And the answer was no. Yeah. So I had to go back and look it up. Anyway, Coyote, yeah, really good. A gangly, kind of wriggly dribbler. Carries the ball and protects the ball really well. Just like sort of swats people aside. Works in tight spaces. Good player. Like really, really high potential, I think. Probably slept on, I agree. That's not your last player. The most underrated player of all time is Boubacar Kamara.
Right, okay, let's talk. So a Boubacar Kamara, we should be clear. Not a
God, no. No. Boubacar Kamara, Aston Villa's Boubacar Kamara. I'm astonished that after all this time, maybe it's the severe injuries.
It's the continual injuries that leave him out of the game. The best ability, Sam,
is availability. Yeah. I'm astonished that most people just haven't clocked yet that he's like basically a Real Madrid caliber player. He's insanely good at football.
Yeah.
And there was a stat flying around the other day that like Villa had lost once in the last 40 games that Boubacar Kamara was fit for. And Villa's ridiculous run over that Christmas period, which came to a crashing halt at Christmas, just after Christmas, with the Arsenal loss, the 4-1, Kamara was suspended and the midfield was, well, Onana went off at half-time and the midfield was all at sea. The presence he is remarkable. Like there are certain players that just do everything right.
Yeah.
Every pass is correct. You never lose the ball. You turn out of pressure. You won all your duels. You pounced on that ball and set Villa off on a counter here. You defend the box really well. You won all of your first contacts at set pieces. How does he do all of this stuff so well? I don't get. He's so good.
Yeah.
People haven't figured it out. Look, he's now on his second long-term knee injury, so it's really bad for Villa. But in the end, is it really good because it means you get to keep them for a while longer?
Yeah.
Because if he'd just been fit for the last 2 years, he would not have signed that contract in the summer. He would have gone to Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or something. But he's absurdly good.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think that without injuries, Manchester United knocking on the door is the long-term solution to their number 6 problem.
Yeah.
There are some big names involved in those conversations if he's fit and healthy for long periods. Without that, you're always kind of a little bit on the what-if kind of element of it.
For sure.
I also think that Amadou Onana is such a fun character. And, you see the interviews with him and he's quite bubbly and playful. And obviously he was a bit of a meme for a while. That I think sometimes, like, Kamara's the quiet man.
Yeah.
Gets left behind in terms of when you're discussing the team.
I genuinely don't know what his voice sounds like.
Yeah,
not a clue.
And this is it. But like Onana is also really good,
yeah,
right? But probably not to the same extent, and also with a less versatile skill set.
Yeah.
But I think that because he does things that people see and a little bit more in highlights reels and scored a couple of screamers, he tends to get the praise in that midfield.
Sure, yeah,
and that maybe changes the dynamic of it a little bit.
And also, like, yeah. All of Kamara's teammates, their skill sets are louder. Onana does louder things, right? Whether it's the personality, the celebrations, the goals, whatever it might be, the lunging tackles with his, kaleidoscope legs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that Tielemans does, in terms of the perfect passes and the scream, like all of it is just much more obvious. And it's one of those things where you watch your team and you watch your team very closely, and whenever a player has made the wrong decision or the wrong pass and you clock it, and he just never does it.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah. Well, there you go. The most underrated player in the Premier League.
Of all time in history.
Okay. Boubacar Kamara, you have had your flowers on this podcast. And with that, I think we're going to bring this to a close. So all that's left for me to do is say a very, very big thank you to Mr. Sam Tighe.
Thank you, buddy.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And sending love to Dean and the family as well this week. I've been Jack Collins. This has been Ranks FC. Thank you so much for listening as ever, and we'll see you all very shortly. Take it easy, Rank Squad. Peace.